Hello and welcome to another episode of the Adobe Creative Suite podcast. My name is Terry White. In this episode, we're going to take a look at Illustrator CS3 and using OpenType. OpenType is a fairly new font standard. Although it's been out for a few years, it has taken the world by storm in the fact that it allows designers or creative people to use type in ways that they never thought possible. Using basically just a couple of fonts, you can have so many different variations and stay just that much further ahead of your competition. Now, what's cool about OpenType is, like I said, it's a font standard that's been out for years. It's a cross-platform font standard, so once you use an OpenType font, that same font can be used on both Mac and PC. And also, the font, you can take advantage of OpenType fonts in just about all of the CS3 applications, or at least the ones that matter, the ones that you would be designing things with. So for example, Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign all take complete advantage of OpenType. So here I am in Illustrator, which is where I would design, for example, a logo for this Italian restaurant called Tony's Place. Now what I've done here so far is I've just simply typed Tony's Place in one font and Italian restaurant in another font. So if we put our cursor in Tony's Place, we'll see the font selection is Bickham Script Pro. If I scroll down there, it's kind of one of my favorite script fonts. It's Bickham Script Pro. We'd also see it from the control panel, but one thing I wanted to point out here is that in the font menu you not only get the preview, but you also see the little O in front of it that lets us know it's an OpenType font. The other font, which we're not really going to do much with today, that is using Avant-Garde Gothic, and of course that's an OpenType font as well. For the most part, whenever I'm doing any of these podcasts, I'm pretty much using OpenType fonts, just in case you wonder. Alright, so if anyone opened up Illustrator and typed in those two fonts, that's exactly what they would get. The only thing that's different is I did increase the tracking on Italian restaurant, but that's pretty much it. If anyone typed in those two fonts, that's what they would get. However, I don't want everyone to be able to type this logo, at least not easily. So I want to give my logo a little bit more flair. I want people to know that, hey, this was actually just designed. It wasn't something I just typed on my computer. So what I'm going to do is just show you some of the OpenType capabilities. Now the beauty of OpenType is that each font, now again, this is Bickham Script Pro, and this is a capital T in Bickham Script Pro. But that capital T, there could be several different versions of the T in this font. Each OpenType font can contain up to 65,000 characters or glyphs. So in this case, I'm looking at a capital T, which is the default capital T. But what if I want to see if there are other T's available? So what I'm going to do is bring up my window menu, and I'm going to come down to Type, and I'm going to bring up the OpenType panel. Now the OpenType panel, by default, lets you access your most commonly used OpenType features. So the first one is standard ligatures, which are on by default. The second one is contextual alternates. So if I click that, in this particular case, for that particular selection, there are no alternates. So that really didn't buy me anything. The next one is discretionary ligatures. That is, that's based on, per font, if there are special ligatures of certain characters next to each other, such as the S and the T character. See how it's giving me that little script above it. So that, or that little swash above it, that will depend on the font. But if we go here to the swash, this is also kind of an alternate. This is showing me the swash version of that T, and I can turn that on and off. So just right off the bat, I could get a different T just by clicking that one button. Now the next one is stylistic alternates, and then that gives me that T, which is way different, and that's way fancier than the one I would have gotten just by typing the letter T on the keyboard. So as you can see, you could really get some fancy looking type with the fonts you probably already have, because Creative Suite comes with several OpenType fonts. Now, what if I don't want to just do it haphazardly? I don't want to sit here guessing and clicking on these buttons to try and figure out what I'm going to get. Well, there is another way to do this. Let's move the OpenType panel out of the way for a minute. Let's go up to Window, Type, and come down to the Glyphs panel. You'll find the Glyphs panel in InDesign as well. Now normally this will show up for the entire font. So since I have the letter T highlighted, it will show me the letter T, and anytime there's a little arrow in the lower right hand corner of a character, that usually means there's more characters for that particular glyph that you have. So there's 3 versions of the capital T here. The one we started with and the other 2 that we've already seen. So I could just quickly just go to the one I want. Now another way of looking at the glyphs panel, which is actually my favorite way to look at it for this kind of scenario where I'm just trying to figure out what characters are available, is instead of looking at the entire font, what I can change it to is just show me the alternates for the current selection. Whatever I highlight, just show me what other characters I have available for whatever I highlight. So when I do that, it quickly just narrows it down, since I'm on the letter T, to the 3 T's that I have. Now if I highlight the letter Y, then it gives me all the various Y's that I have. So there's a ton of Y's that I can use. And again, I can just double click and just pick whichever Y I want to use based on, the design itself, whatever looks best. So I'll go ahead and I think I like that one. So that's going to give it a nice little flair to my Tony's place. So I could have another Y in a different word and it wouldn't have that flair. It's up to me to change it per word. So if I come over here and I highlight the letter E, I get all the various letter E's. So I could really just kind of put a little flair to the bottoms of my characters and only using that particular letter E, maybe not another letter E that was further or closer in the word. So you could just really have a lot of fun using OpenType. And I'm going to change one more. I'm just going to grab the letter L here, and we'll just go ahead and just give that a little bit more flair there on the letter L. And I think we're pretty much done. That is our new Tony's Place Italian restaurant. Now I might want to move Italian restaurant somewhere else, or kind of maybe put Italian restaurant there and kind of space it out a little bit more, but that's starting to really come together. That's a logo I could sell. The other one, anyone could type if they just knew how to type in those particular fonts. But unless you're taking advantage of OpenType and unless you know how to use OpenType, you wouldn't come up with this combination, at least not right off the keyboard unless you knew what you were doing. So that's Tony's Place Restaurant. My name's Terry White, and I had fun showing you just a little bit about OpenType in Illustrator for designing your logo. Now also keep in mind that if you're going to hand this logo off to someone, you might want to go ahead and convert this type to outlines. That way they would not need the font to be able to open and place this logo in other documents. So if I were going to do that, I'd go up to my type menu and come down to create outlines. And what that would do is convert it into a graphic. So it would no longer be editable. That's the key here. But then if I handed them off an EPS or an Illustrator file, they would be able to place that in any document and would not need BICMScript Pro or the other font to be able to print this. So I'd have to create outlines of each selection, and then that would make this a graphic instead of words. So you would want to keep a copy that you could edit and then create outlines for the copy you're going to give the client. That also kind of stops them from screwing it up. They can't just open it and start typing, or it won't substitute the font if the font's missing. So that's another key important ingredient to creating logos for customers that contain special characters or special fonts that you've used that they may not have access to. So that's it. Once again, for this episode of the Adobe Creative Suite podcast, my name's Terry White. Thanks for watching.